The Velthrani had ruled the stars for 6,000 years. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black like deep space. They believed they were better than all other species in the galaxy. They proved this belief by conquering world after world. They took slaves. They killed anyone who stood against them, and they made sure everyone watched. The Velthrani loved to broadcast their power. They had channels that reached 1,000 worlds. Trillions of aliens watched their programs every day. The most popular shows were the executions. The Velthrani would bring captured aliens onto golden stages and kill them slowly while crowds cheered. It was entertainment to them, nothing more. When Velthrani scout ships first found Earth, they laughed at what they saw. Humans were small and weak. They had only 2 arms. They had spread to just a dozen colonies beyond their home world. The Velthrani saw them as simple creatures from a dangerous planet. They called Earth a death world because of its harsh conditions. They thought this meant humans would be easy to break. They were wrong, but they did not know this yet. The raid happened on a Tuesday by Earth time. A colonial transport ship called the Gentle Dawn was carrying families to a new settlement. There were 200 people on board. Many of them were children. The Velthrani warships came out of nowhere. They disabled the transport with a single shot. Then they boarded. The humans fought back with whatever they had. Kitchen knives, tools, their bare hands. It did not matter. The Velthrani soldiers were bigger and had better weapons. They killed 30 humans in the first 5 minutes. Then they stopped. They wanted the rest alive. Living slaves were worth more than dead bodies. Among the captured was a little girl named Mira Chen. She was 7 years old. She had black hair and bright eyes that held no fear. When a Velthrani soldier hit her mother across the face, Mira did something that would change the galaxy forever. She bit him. Her small teeth sank into the gray flesh of his arm. The soldier screamed more from shock than pain. A human child had dared to attack one of the mighty Velthrani. The soldier threw her to the ground and raised his weapon to kill her, but his commander stopped him. The commander saw something valuable in this small act of defiance. The Ascension Festival was coming soon. It was the biggest celebration in the Velthrani Dominion. Trillions would be watching. What better way to show Velthrani power than to break a spirit that refused to break? They took Mira away from her mother. They put her in a cell alone. They told her what was coming. They wanted her to be afraid. They wanted her to cry and beg. But Mira Chen was the daughter of colonists. She came from people who had crossed the stars to build new homes on dangerous worlds. Fear was something she had been taught to face, not run from. The day of the broadcast came. Ambassador Ilara Vance was watching from the human embassy on a neutral space station called Korath 7. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 30 years trying to build peace between humanity and the alien powers. She had believed that words could solve any problem. That day would prove her wrong. The broadcast began with music and lights. The Velthrani High Executor walked onto the golden stage. He was the ruler of the entire Dominion. His robes were made from the skins of conquered species. His crown held jewels taken from destroyed worlds. He smiled at the cameras with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Then they brought out Mira. She was so small on that huge stage. Her hands were bound. Her clothes were torn. But she was not crying. She looked at the High Executor with eyes that held only anger. Even now, she would not give them what they wanted. The High Executor spoke to the cameras. He talked about human weakness. He talked about how this child had dared to bite one of his soldiers. He said she would serve as a lesson to all primitive species who thought they could resist the Dominion. What happened next was shown to trillions of viewers across the galaxy. Ambassador Vance watched every second. She forced herself not to look away. She owed Mira that much. They made it slow. They made it painful. And through it all, Mira Chen did not beg. She screamed. She cried. But she never once asked them to stop. Her last words, barely a whisper, were for her mother. When it was over, the High Executor turned to the camera. His smile was wide and cruel. He spoke directly to humanity. Let all primitives see what defiance earns. Your child died like an animal because she acted like an animal. Humanity will kneel before the Dominion, or humanity will end. You have one cycle to send your leaders to surrender. If you do not, we will come to your little death world and finish what we started. He laughed. The crowd laughed with him. The broadcast ended. Ambassador Vance sat alone in her office. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. Something else was building inside her. Something old. Something that humans had carried with them since they first picked up rocks and sticks to defend their families in the caves of ancient Earth. She opened a secure channel to Earth. The faces of presidents and generals appeared on her screen. They had all watched. They had all seen. Some were crying. Some were silent. All of them had the same look in their eyes. The same look that was in hers. Ambassador Vance spoke 4 words. Her voice was steady and cold. Wake the sleeping giant. On Earth, the message spread like fire. It reached every city, every home, every heart. People stopped what they were doing. They watched the broadcast that was now playing on every screen. They saw what had been done to a 7-year-old girl who had only tried to protect her mother. And something changed in humanity that day. Something that the Velthrani, in all their 6,000 years of conquest, had never seen before. They had killed many species. They had broken countless worlds. But they had never faced a people like humanity. They had never made humanity angry. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy had seen many wars. It had seen empires rise and fall, but it had never seen what was coming next. The Deathworld was waking up, and it was hungry for vengeance. The galaxy waited for humanity to respond. Every species expected the same thing. Humans would negotiate. They would offer money and resources. They would bow their heads and accept Velthrani rule. This was what every other species had done. 17 civilizations had faced this choice before. All 17 had chosen to kneel. But humanity did something no one expected. They went silent. For 3 weeks, no human ship left the Sol system. No messages came from Earth. The human embassies across the galaxy closed their doors. Human traders abandoned their goods and went home. It was as if the entire species had simply vanished. The Velthrani laughed at this. Their intelligence officers said humanity was frozen with fear. Their generals said the primitives were trying to hide. The High Executor himself made jokes about it during his speeches. He said humans were like small animals that close their eyes when they see a predator. They think if they cannot see death, death cannot see them. He was wrong. So very wrong. Behind that wall of silence, something incredible was happening. Something that had not happened in human history for over 300 years. Humanity was becoming one. The old borders fell first. Nations that had argued for centuries put aside their differences in a single day. Presidents and prime ministers sat together and made a choice. There would be no more countries, no more flags, no more divisions. There would only be humanity, one people, one purpose, one rage. The corporations came next. The great companies that had built empires of money and power opened their vaults. They gave everything. Factories that had made luxury goods started making weapons. Ships that had carried tourists started carrying soldiers. Scientists who had worked on beauty products started working on ways to kill. But it was the ordinary people who truly showed what humanity could become. Mothers who had wept while watching Mira die learned to weld armor plating. They worked 20 hours a day without complaint. When their hands bled, they wrapped them and kept working. Fathers who had screamed at their screens loaded missiles into warships. They carried pictures of their own children in their pockets. They thought of Mira with every shell they lifted. Children too young to fight found their own ways to help. They packed food for soldiers. They wrote letters of encouragement. They drew pictures of Earth and human flags and taped them to the walls of warships. One little boy, just 6 years old, gave his favorite toy robot to a Marine. He said the soldier might need a friend where he was going. The old veterans came out of retirement. Men and women in their 70s and 80s who had fought in humanity's last great war, they had seen terrible things. They had done terrible things. They had spent decades trying to forget. Now they remembered, and they taught. They opened sealed files that contained plans too brutal to ever use, tactics that had been banned because they were too horrible, weapons that had been locked away because humanity had decided it never wanted to be that kind of species again. Now humanity needed to be that species. For Mira, for the 200 people still held captive, for every child who might one day face the same golden stage. In secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, The true human fleet took shape. The galaxy knew about humanity's official navy, 300 small ships meant for defense and exploration. What the galaxy did not know about were the 4,000 warships that humanity had been building in secret for the past 50 years. They had names like Vengeance and Fury and No Mercy. They were ugly ships, built for one purpose only. They were not meant to explore or trade or make peace. They were meant to kill. Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo took command of this armada. He was a big man with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much death. He had commanded ships for 40 years. He had hoped to retire soon and spend his last years fishing on the shores of Lake Victoria, where his grandfather had taught him to be patient. There would be no fishing now. There would be no patience. 4 million humans volunteered to crew the fleet. Only a portion could be taken. Those who were chosen wrote final letters to their families. They recorded messages for children not yet born. They knew they might not come back. They did not care. Admiral Okonkwo gathered his people in the great hangar of the command ship Righteous Fury. 4 million faces looked up at him through screens across the fleet. He had been told to give a speech, to inspire them, to remind them what they were fighting for. He did not give a speech. Instead, he played an audio file. It was Mira's last scream, that terrible sound that had been broadcast to trillions. It lasted 7 seconds. 7 seconds that felt like forever. When the scream ended, Admiral Okonkwo spoke. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That was Mira Chen. She was 7 years old. She liked strawberry ice cream and wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. She bit a Velthrani soldier because he hurt her mother. They killed her for it. They killed her slowly while the galaxy watched. He paused. His hands gripped the railing in front of him. I am not going to tell you to fight for Earth. I am not going to tell you to fight for humanity. I am going to tell you the truth. Where we are going, many of us will die. We will face an empire that has won every war for 6,000 years. We will be outnumbered and outgunned. He looked directly at the camera. His eyes were cold and hard. I have only one question for you. Who wants to go to hell with me? 4 million voices answered as one. The sound shook the hulls of every ship in the fleet. It was not a word. It was a roar, a promise, a declaration of war. The Velthrani had given humanity one cycle to surrender. The cycle ended in 3 days. In 3 days, the silence would break. In 3 days, the thunder would come, and the galaxy would learn why humans called their world a death world. Not because it was dangerous to live on, but because everything that lived there had learned to be dangerous in return. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was ready to teach the universe a lesson written in fire and blood. The deadline passed. The Velthrani waited for human ambassadors to come begging for mercy. They prepared grand ceremonies for the surrender. The High Executor practiced the speech he would give when humanity knelt before him. No ambassadors came. Instead, something strange happened. Every screen in the Velthrani Dominion flickered. Every radio crackled. Every communication device in 1,000 star systems suddenly showed the same image. A human woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Ambassador Ilara Vance had not slept in 3 weeks. She had watched the preparations. She had seen the weapons being loaded. She had spoken to soldiers who knew they were going to die. Now she had one more job to do. She spoke in a soft voice. The message was translated into every Velthrani dialect. Every citizen of the Dominion heard it in their own language. People of the Velthrani Dominion, my name is Ilara Vance. I speak for the human species. She paused. Her eyes seemed to look through the camera and into the soul of every person watching. Your leaders killed a child named Mira Chen. She was 7 years old. They killed her slowly on a golden stage while you cheered. They did this to teach us fear. They wanted us to kneel. They wanted us to break. Her voice grew harder. Not angry, something worse, something cold. They failed. We are not afraid. We are not broken. We are awake. Across the Dominion, Velthrani citizens stopped what they were doing. Something in her voice made them listen. Something they had never heard from a conquered species before. Certainty. We are giving you this message as a gift your leaders never gave their victims. We are giving you a warning. She leaned closer to the camera. In 12 of your hours, the human fleet will arrive at your home system. We are coming for your military. We are coming for your leaders. We are coming for everyone who played a part in Mira's death." She let those words hang in the air. "We are not coming for you. Not the farmers who grow your food, not the teachers who raise your children, not the workers who build your cities." We know that many of you watched that broadcast and felt nothing. We know that many of you cheered, but we also know that some of you looked away, some of you felt sick, some of you held your own children close and wondered what kind of people you had become. Her expression softened just slightly. "This message is for you. Take your families. Take your children. Take your elderly. Leave the military areas. Go to your homes. Go to your temples. Stay there. Do not fight us. Do not try to help your soldiers. And pray." The word hung in the air like smoke. "Pray to whatever gods you believe in. Pray for the souls of your soldiers. Pray for your leaders. Because what is coming for them cannot be stopped. What is coming for them cannot be reasoned with. What is coming for them is the fury of a death world." She held up a picture. A small girl with black hair and bright eyes. Mira Chen, smiling, alive, happy. "You called our home a death world. You were right. Our planet tried to kill us every day for 4 billion years. Ice ages, plagues, predators, volcanoes, floods, fires. Everything that could kill us, we survived. Everything that could break us made us stronger." She put the picture down and stared into the camera one final time. "We are the children of the death world, and now we are coming to your door, not to conquer, not to enslave. We are coming to teach you why the universe should fear the name humanity." The broadcast ended. The screens went dark. In the great halls of the Velthrani High Command, there was silence. Then the High Executor began to laugh. His generals laughed with him. "A bluff," they said. "A desperate trick from a weak species." The humans had a few hundred ships. The Dominion had 12,000. The math was simple, but some of the younger officers did not laugh. They had studied humans. They had read the reports from the scout ships. They knew what a death world really meant. They knew that humans had spent their entire history killing each other in wars of terrible creativity. They knew that humans had split the atom and used it as a weapon. They knew that humans had walked on their own moon just to prove they could. These young officers said nothing, but they quietly sent messages to their families. They told them to do what the human ambassador had said. They told them to go home and pray. 6 hours before the deadline, the Velthrani long-range sensors detected something. A fleet was coming out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The sensor officers counted the ships. They counted again. They counted a third time because the number made no sense. 4,000 warships. The humans had hidden 4,000 warships. No one had known. No one had suspected. The primitives, with their tiny navy, had been building an armada in secret while the galaxy looked the other way. But the formation was what truly scared the sensor officers. The ships were not arranged in any standard pattern. They were not in defensive lines or attack columns. They were arranged in the shape of a human hand. 5 groups of ships forming 5 fingers, reaching forward, ready to grab, ready to crush. The High Executor stopped laughing. For the first time in his long life, something cold touched his heart. Not fear, not yet, but the beginning of fear, the first small seed. He ordered his fleet to engage, 12,000 ships against 4,000. The odds were still in his favor. He was still going to win. He told himself this again and again as the human fleet advanced. He told himself this as his own ships moved to meet them. He told himself this right up until the first shots were fired. Then he stopped telling himself anything, because what happened next was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Beyond anything any Velthrani had ever imagined. The humans had come to teach a lesson, and school was now in session. The Battle of Velthros Prime should have lasted weeks. The Velthrani had more ships. They had better technology. They had 6,000 years of military experience. Every computer simulation said they would win. Every general agreed. The battle lasted 11 hours, and the Velthrani lost. It started with the human fighters, small ships piloted by single humans that flew in ways the Velthrani had never seen. They turned so fast that the force should have killed the pilots inside. It did kill them, some of them. The others kept flying with broken ribs and bleeding eyes. They flew until their hearts stopped. And even then, some ships kept going on automatic, crashing into Velthrani vessels in final acts of spite. The Velthrani pilots could not match them. Their bodies were not built for such punishment. When they tried to follow human maneuvers, they blacked out from the pressure. When they tried to escape, the humans followed with a patience that seemed inhuman. Human pilots would chase a single enemy for hours, ignoring damage, ignoring wounds, ignoring everything except the kill. This was what the Veltrani had not understood about Deathworlds. It was not just that the planet was dangerous. It was that everything living on such a world had to be more dangerous to survive. Humans were persistent predators. Their ancestors had hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They did not stop. They did not give up. They just kept coming. The capital ships were worse. Velthrani battleships fired weapons that should have destroyed human vessels in a single hit. The shots landed. The human ships took the damage, and they kept coming. Holes in their hulls, fires in their corridors, crew members dying by the dozens. None of it mattered. They patched what they could and kept fighting. One human destroyer took 17 direct hits. Its captain was dead. Half its crew was dead. Its engines were failing. A young lieutenant took command. She was 23 years old and had never led anything larger than a shuttle. She ordered the ship to ram the nearest Velthrani carrier. The carrier was 10 times the size of the destroyer. It had shields and armor and thousands of soldiers on board. The destroyer hit it at full speed. The explosion killed everyone on both ships. It also created a hole in the Velthrani formation that 3 human cruisers flew through, destroying 4 more ships before they were finally stopped. This happened again and again. Human ships that should have retreated chose to advance. Human crews that should have surrendered chose to fight to the last breath. Human captains who could have saved themselves chose to spend their lives taking enemies with them. The Velthrani had a word for this. They called it insanity. Humans had a different word. They called it sacrifice. By the 5th hour, the Velthrani fleet was in chaos. Their formations had broken. Their communications were jammed. Their commanders were giving orders that no one could follow. The human fleet moved through them like wolves through sheep, picking off ships one by one. Admiral Okonkwo watched from the bridge of the righteous fury. His face showed nothing. Inside, he felt every death, human and Velthrani alike. He had ordered good people to their deaths today. He had watched ships full of sons and daughters burn, but he did not stop. He could not stop, not until it was done. The orbital defense platforms fell in the 7th hour. Human Marines boarded them in conditions that should have been fatal. The Velthrani had filled the stations with toxic gas. The humans put on masks and kept fighting. The Velthrani had turned off the gravity. The humans had trained for zero-gravity combat. The Velthrani had raised the temperature until metal glowed. The humans sweated and burned and kept coming. One Marine sergeant fought for 3 hours with a piece of metal stuck in her leg. She killed 47 Velthrani soldiers before she finally fell. Her last act was to activate a grenade. Her last words were Mira's name. By the 9th hour, the Velthrani fleet existed only in pieces, scattered ships running for the edge of the system, burning hulks drifting in the void. The High Executor's flagship was surrounded. He sent a message to Admiral Okonkwo. He offered surrender. He offered treasure. He offered anything. Admiral Okonkwo sent back a single image, Mira Chen on the golden stage. Then he ordered his ships to fire. The flagship died in a ball of light. The High Executor died with it. He never got to beg. He never got to bargain. He simply stopped existing, just as Mira had stopped existing. The universe had a sense of justice after all. With the fleet destroyed, the human drop pods began to fall. Thousands of them, raining down on every military base on Veltros Prime. The ground war began. It was not a war. It was a hunt. Humans fought in gravity that made Velthrani soldiers sick. They breathed air that had been mixed with chemicals from Earth. Not poison, just the normal air of a death world. Air that smelled like forests and oceans and storms. Air that the Velthrani lungs could not handle. The humans moved at night because they could see heat. Velthrani soldiers glowed in their vision like candles in the dark. They could not hide. They could not run. They could only fight or die. Every human soldier carried a picture of Mira Chen. They had taped it to their armor or printed it on their helmets. Some had written her name on their weapons. They fought for her. They killed for her. They died for her. The Velthrani soldiers who surrendered were taken prisoner. They were treated according to the laws of war. They were given food and water and medical care. The humans were not monsters. They were not here for revenge against foot soldiers who had just followed orders. But those who had been in the arena that day, those who had cheered while a child died, those who had held the instruments, those who had smiled for the cameras, for them, there was no surrender. There was no mercy. There was only justice, delivered at the end of a human rifle. By the 11th hour, the last Velthrani base had fallen. The military of the Dominion was broken, and the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Deathworlders stood among the ruins of an empire that had seemed unbeatable. The humans had won, but they were not done. The war was over. Now came something harder, something more important. Now came the peace. The Velthrani Dominion fell in 3 months. Not because humanity conquered 1,000 worlds. They did not have to. The galaxy did the work for them. Every species that had been enslaved by the Velthrani watched the Battle of Veltros Prime. They saw the mighty Dominion fleet burn. They saw the orbital platforms fall. They saw human soldiers walking through the ruins of military bases that had seemed unbreakable. And something changed inside them. The Kathrani were first, small creatures with blue skin who had been slaves for 2,000 years. They rose up on the morning after the battle. They took simple tools and farming equipment and attacked their masters. They died by the thousands, but they did not stop. And when the Velthrani soldiers tried to call for help, no help came. The Dominion fleet was gone. The Moravi followed, then the Sylph, then the Vendari. Species after species that had been broken and chained for centuries suddenly remembered that they had once been free. The broadcast of Mira's death had shown them the worst of the galaxy. The human response had shown them something else. It had shown them that tyrants could fall. Humanity did not try to conquer the Dominion worlds. They did not want an empire. They wanted something simpler and harder. They wanted justice. The human soldiers moved through Velthrani cities without firing a shot. Civilians who had stayed home as the ambassador had asked were left alone. Schools stayed open. Hospitals kept working. Food kept flowing. The humans were not here to punish ordinary people for the crimes of their leaders, but they were here to punish the leaders. The trials began 1 month after the battle. They were held in the same arena where Mira had died. The golden stage was still there. The cameras were still there. Now they showed something different. One by one, the officials who had planned the execution were brought forward. The guards who had held Mira down, the technicians who had operated the equipment, the entertainers who had made jokes while a child screamed. Each one faced a panel of judges from 12 different species. Each one was given a chance to speak. Most of them said they were just following orders. Most of them said they had no choice. Most of them said they were sorry. It did not matter. The evidence was clear. The broadcast had recorded everything. The galaxy had watched. There was no hiding from what they had done. Some were sentenced to prison. Some were sentenced to labor camps where they would work to rebuild what the Dominion had destroyed. A few, the worst ones, the ones who had smiled the widest while Mira suffered, were sentenced to death. They were executed quickly and cleanly. No golden stage, no screaming crowds, just a simple end. The human soldiers did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They watched in silence and then went back to work. There was still much to do. The slaves were freed, every single one. Humanity spent 6 months finding them all, hidden in mines and factories and private homes, old and young, sick and healthy. Each one was given a choice. They could return to their home worlds. They could start new lives on human colonies. They could stay on Velthrani worlds as free citizens. The choice was theirs. Most of them had never had a choice before. Some of them did not know what to do with freedom. Human counselors worked with them for months, helping them remember what it meant to be people instead of property. It was slow work, hard work, but the humans did not give up. They never gave up. The Velthrani civilians watched all of this with confusion. They had expected to be treated the way they had treated others. They had expected slavery and death and humiliation. Instead, the humans rebuilt their hospitals. Human doctors treated their sick. Human engineers fixed their power plants. Human teachers offered to help their children learn. One Velthrani elder asked a human soldier why. Why help the people who had cheered for Mira's death? Why show mercy to those who had shown none? The soldier was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a worn photograph, a little girl with black hair and bright eyes. Because this is not who she was, the soldier said. Mira was kind. She wanted to be a doctor so she could help people, all people, even the ones who were different from her. If we become monsters to fight monsters, then they win, and she loses. She put the photograph away. We did not come here to become you. We came here to show you what you could become. The elder did not understand, not then. But years later, when his grandchildren played with human children and Kathrani children and Moravi children, he began to see what the soldier had meant. Humanity addressed the galaxy 1 year after the battle. Every species watched. Every world listened. Ambassador Vance stood at a podium on Veltros Prime. Behind her was a statue that had not been there before. It was a bronze figure of a little girl. She was looking up at the stars with a gentle smile. Her hands were open, as if welcoming whatever she might find. At her feet was a simple plaque. Ambassador Vance spoke the words written there. Mira Chen, born 2847, died 2854. She was brave, she was kind, she was ours, and we did not forget. She paused and looked at the camera. People of the galaxy, we are humanity. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Fire and ice, predator and prey, plague and famine. We survived it all. We are still here. Her voice grew stronger. We are capable of terrible things. You have seen this. We broke the Velthrani dominion in 3 months. We could have burned their worlds to ash. We could have enslaved them as they enslaved others. We had the power. We had the anger. We had every reason. She shook her head slowly. But we did not, because power without mercy is just cruelty. And cruelty is what we came to end, not spread. She smiled. It was a tired smile, but real. We will be your friends if you let us, your partners, your family. We will share our medicine, our music, our laughter. We will help you build and grow and heal. This is what we want. This is who we are. Then her smile faded and her eyes turned cold. But know this, our children are sacred. They are our future. They are our hope. They are everything we fight for and everything we protect. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the stars. Touch them, and there is no force in this universe, no fleet, no empire, no God that will protect you from what we become. We showed you what we do to those who hurt our children. We showed you that the Deathworld shows no mercy to those who threaten its young. She looked at the statue of Mira one last time. Remember her name. Remember her face. Remember what happened when you made us angry. And remember that we would rather be your friends than your enemies. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended. The galaxy was silent. But it was a different kind of silence than before. Before, the galaxy had been silent because it did not know what to say to the Deathworlders. Now it was silent because it was thinking, considering, understanding. Humanity had shown them two faces, the face of war, terrible and unstoppable, and the face of peace, kind and generous. The galaxy had a choice now. It could fear humanity, or it could walk beside them. One by one, species began to reach out, to trade, to talk, to learn. And humanity welcomed them all, with open hands and open hearts. But always in every human ship and embassy and colony, there was a picture of Mira Chen, a reminder of what they had lost, a reminder of why they fought, a reminder that even the smallest among them was worth the fury of a death world. She had been 7 years old. She had bitten a soldier to protect her mother, and she had changed the galaxy forever. That was the human way. Even in death, they did not give up. Even in death, they made a difference. Even in death, they won.